Good morning, my name is George Corser. I'm here at itt-tech and I'm going to be teaching you a concept in computer science. And the purpose of this presentation is to also demonstrate student engagement. So I'm going to teach you a concept called Bubblesort. Anybody ever heard of Bubblesort before? Besides the computer people? No cheating. You want to tell me what Bubblesort is? No? Okay, I'll tell you. Bubblesort is a way of putting in order records on a computer database. It could be a computer database, it could be items in a computer file. It's just a way of sorting things. It's almost exactly like sorting in a library. Now I know everybody here has been to a library. Who can tell me how books are sorted in a library?
Dewey Decimal System.
Dewey Decimal System, by number. There's a decimal number, and it puts all the books in order, with the exception of fiction for those library people out there. But the fiction is by alphabetical. But basically, you have this number, and if you were to start up a library, and a truck came up with 1,000 books, start a small library, not in any particular order, but they're all numbered. How would you go about getting them on the shelves in the right order? How would you do that? Any ideas?
Start a system, try to organize, the 20s, 10s,
Chronologically.
There you go. See, because you're a human being, so you have a much higher functioning capability than a computer does. You're going to divide out the hundreds, the 200s, and then the 300s, and so forth. And then you're going to divide out the 110s, 120s, 130s, and then you're going to divide out the 111, 112, right? You're going to get right down to the detail. The problem is that takes a lot of space, because you got to put stacks of books every place, right? And it also takes the ability to recognize that there's gaps, like maybe there are no 200s, and you just have this big, huge hole there. Now you're smart enough to know, don't leave it empty, fill it up with something else, but the computer's not smart enough. It has to allocate all this space in case there might be some 200s. So you can see how organizing these books in a library is a difficult problem. Suppose that you had help, and suppose that this person could only do one thing. You could put one book in front of or in back of the other. That's all it could do. It's like the Flash. He can go extremely, unbelievably fast, but he can only do one thing. How would you, oh, there's the other thing. The books have to all be in a line, and you can't move any book except for one book swapping with another. That's all you can do. Can you imagine how you might sort the books in that case? It doesn't come to mind easy. Well, that's what Bubblesort is. In the case of a Bubblesort, it's as if you have one librarian who's got to put 1,000 books, 10,000 books, 100,000 books, 1,000,000 books, but she's really, really fast. But she has to keep all the books exactly where they are, but you can only swap them. So I'm going to give you guys cards. And if you could, please write 2 numbers on 2 different cards. And I'm going to demonstrate what I'm talking about. If you have a pen, all the better.
Just any 2 numbers?
Right. Just pick 8 numbers between, let's say between 0 and 100 to make it simpler to write. Don't get too creative. Just write it, yeah, that's good. Perfect. These are lucky numbers?
That's right.
All right, good. Now these are the books, the Dewey Decimal System books in our library. We're going to assume the books have already been numbered by some professional librarian. How would Bubblesort sort these? Basically, what would happen is, it goes to the first number, goes to the first book. Okay, these are all books, say, and it says, is this number higher than that number? If it is, puts it in order. It swaps it, just like that. Then it goes to the second number, swaps it. What about this one? Swaps it. Don't be afraid. I know you guys know which number's higher. How about this one? Swaps it. And how about this one? Swaps it. Okay. Are they sorted?
No.
No. What happened?
Just sorted the one number.
Yes. That's the concept of the bubble. That's why they call it the bubble sort. Some people call it a sink sort, where it sinks to the bottom. You can think of this as sinking to the bottom. You can think of it as floating to the top. It's a bubble sort. Now, this incredibly fast librarian just swapped that, and all it achieved was it got the last book in the last place. That happened to have started at the beginning, but it might not have been. Now what does the librarian go do?
Start over.
Does it all over again. Anybody want to guess what happens here?
Swap.
Swap. Nothing. No, this one doesn't.
I missed it.
We swap every single time we started to get numb. See, that's the thing. So this one stays this time. This is the first time we've ever had to stay. So now this goes to the next one. Now we swap. Swap. Sorry, we're blocking the way, Karen.
Stay.
And stays. So what did the second round do?
In this case, it did sort it all.
It did sort it all. It did sort it all because these are now all sorted. Okay, but what in a real bubble sort, what it really does is it puts the second highest number in the second to the last spot. So your bubble sort basically takes the first pass. It'll take the biggest number, put it at the end, and the second biggest, the third biggest, and so forth. So there's your super fast librarian doing a bubble sort.
I know where you're going, and I don't want to see the big O notation.
No,
So-
we're not going big O notation.
No, we're gonna cut you here. You did.
Are you?
You're
Okay.
good there. So-
Okay.
Yep.
I have some cool things about bubble sort.
Well, did you have any other exercises you had planned?
Well, I was thinking that you guys could, now that we understand what the bubble sort is, what's the worst case scenario? What's the nightmare scenario for the librarian? And what's the easy case scenario? I mean, now that we know what the bubble sort is, when would it be appropriate to use it? Okay? Because really, people will complain about the bubble sort. It gets a lot of bad press. And it is a horribly cumbersome method of sorting. But it's simple. It uses very little memory. Only 2 cards, 2 books. You never have to move your books. You have the same storage space, right, that you would have. Plus, if 99.99% of the time your books are all sorted anyway, it's a very fast way of using a sort. That's the good news. The bad news is, if it's inverted, it takes for freaking ever to do this thing. So the bubble sorts, and I thought an exercise might be to think up, if I had enough people, I'd take 2 people, what would be the worst case scenario, best case scenario, average case scenario? When would it be useful, when would it not be useful?
Good. Cool. All right, yeah, we'll stop it there.
Okay. That was less than 10 minutes.
Yes.